Hey YouTube, Mike here. How we all doing today? Hope we all had a very safe and productive week. All right, I guess you're looking behind me and looking at my MFT table thinking, what the heck happened to Mike's woodshop? Well, for the past week, as you've seen from that last video, the workshop turned into Mike's RC shop. I started bringing home more and more of my RC cars, and I decided to bring home the 1/8 scale Nitro open wheel late model oval car I used to race at the dirt oval track. Wanted to get it back running, so I brought everything home and proceeded to try to get this thing to work. So I figured, since I got such a large response from you guys out there that are RCers, I figured let me show you what I really used to be very passionate in, besides the oval NASCAR that I did on the 1/12 scale, is this big car behind me here. And also let you know what I have coming in a few days. All right, so I've been chilling here since, again, 4 o'clock this morning. Actually, no, today was 3 o'clock this morning. More so for the knee, but standing is good. So, and moving around. So I'm hanging out with a cigar. I was hanging out with a cup of coffee, but now I got a bottle of Gatorade. So, here, let me show you what I've been up to for the past couple of days. And I'll bring this forward here. Let's see if you see it. Yes, let me just make sure you can see that. Yes, you can. All right, I don't know if you notice, but I'll take the car off. And I think some of you will notice what this is without the words up here. It's the rigid outfeed stand for the table saw. Of course, when I finally decide I want to bring this here, I go on YouTube and start, looking at, can I wake up this motor that's been sitting for 3 years? And on the videos I'm watching. Now, of course, you notice I got all different types of rubber and stuff. My automotive thing I would work on, fender cover, oil absorber, high temperature silicone pad, my little table. I don't want to get the MFT tables dirty. So I'm watching the video and I'm going, wait a minute. That guy's working like a gentleman. Up, off to, and I'm going, that's a rigid outfeed. And I got one sitting in my shop I don't use since I got my big outfeed table. So I bring it home, and sure enough, there it is in all its glory. I wrapped a draw liner that I had rolls of it from the old Betsy, the big toolbox. I just basically glued it down, cut it. Then I built this little tray, and they make pro stands for it too that have all this stuff, and this thing will swivel. I just use a clamp to prevent it from moving, not that much. And then I bolted this table on at a nice comfortable height, again with the rubber, put some molding around it to prevent stuff from rolling off, and there we are. And now I can disassemble it. I can move it up and down a little bit more when I'm working on it. So I've been very, very handy for me. Well, basically, let's see if we get back into, let me get this over just a tad here. All right, well, basically it's an Ofna 1/8 scale, and it is 4-wheel drive. All right, it has a 350 low-C motor, and then I have more motors. I have spare low-C motors here, and Nova Rossi, which is an Italian motor. They, again, everything you see here is over 3 years I haven't touched. And, you know, it's got the pipe, it's got a fuel tank, air filter. The way I love these is that when you're working on them, you're wrenching. And I'll show you the tools that I have that I worked on these. And it's 4-wheel drive. It's been sitting for a while. I had to remove the engine out of the car. It has this device here for laps that when you're going around the track, again, it'll give you your lap. Remember, you're going around at 40 miles an hour, almost on straightaways. It has a little glow plug in it that actually fires, gives, just like your spark plug, makes ignition. You have a glow plug starter. This thing, you need this starter box or bump box to start it. Some have a pull start. Others also have a motor. You put another machine into it, it'll turn that, which will then turn the engine. Some have a shaft that will turn the engine to start it, but this you start it with this starter box. So I had to pull the engine, spray, again, watching YouTube videos to get these engines. You know, they're like $200, $225. So I really didn't want to scrap it and put another one in. I wanted to try to wake it up. And I did. I had it out there. I had it running for a little while. Did have a little bit of problem. You know, the batteries in my starter box were bad and they wouldn't hold the charge. So it was dying, so I had to go get new batteries. There's a battery inside of this receiver box. It's a 1700 mAh, 6-volt hump pack, and that fits in here. That runs the throttle servo and runs the steering servo and the MyLap. Also this volt watcher that will tell me because this is sealed inside of this waterproof, so it will tell me what the voltage is every time I turn on the car. So if it's low, I can give it a charge. If it's, you know, good, everything is fine. So took it apart, put some, I used this stuff, which is an after run oil. You're supposed to put it in after you're done. You're gonna let the car sit for a week till the next time you race or whatever. I put it in there, I let it sit for 24 hours. I still couldn't move the motor. So finally, after a little persuasion with a pair of channel locks, I got the motor to move. It's a single piston. What else? So then everything else, I was able to get enough of a charge on the battery to check all the servos. Everything works. The gears spin. Everything spun nice on it. I took it apart. I had to clean it because when I put it away filthy dirty. So I use a cleaner, and I'm using everything over here. Everything. So I use this Nitro cleaner, and basically you just spray it on, and you take a rag, and it's almost like a denatured. Well, it's not. It's a chemical, but it dries, and it's electronic safe, and cleaned everything up nice so that you can work on it without having to get filthy. And then I got these glow plug igniters, but this is a glow plug igniter. This one happens to have a little voltage, and basically you just take that off, you put this in, you lock it in, it'll give a voltage, it'll give a juice into the glow plug, and then that's what starts up the car. So these, I'm even seeing if I can wake these things up. It's a single C-cell NiCad battery in here. I got like 4 of them. So I got 2 to work so far. So hopefully it'll keep a charge. I use Simple Green. I use them for all the cars, but I use Simple Green mixture. I think it's like 4 to 10, something like that. Spray it on the car to clean it. And then I have these rigid the sack boxes that I keep the car in. Well, actually no, I keep it in the basket, my parts, but I'll go through that in a minute. And then, you know, you got to keep temperature, so I got this heat gun. You got to give temperature on the motor. And then the starting procedure for this thing, you actually use this actual sock that you plug in. So I would plug it into 110 volt, and then I would put this sock right over the motor. I could also use, that's why I have the Milwaukee heat gun. I could also take the heat gun if I wanted to, and you heat up the head of the motor. You want to get it up to temperature to get the molecules working. You don't want to start it cold. For one, it's very hard. So I would keep this on like that, and it would be plugged in, and it would heat up the head of the motor. Then when I go to start it, I would have it on the bump box, and I'll show you that in a second. And put this in, and then hit down on the bump box. It spins this flywheel that's underneath the car, and would start up the engine. Then there's settings. There's a idle. There's a high-speed needle right here on the carburetor. There's a low-speed needle over here on the throttle body assembly, and you have to adjust that. So I had to get them all readjusted to like what they call factory settings, and then get the car running. I had it running for about at least 2 minutes, and then on the bottom of the car, you see right here, this thing right here, that's what the bump box. That's what starts the car. It's actually part of the flywheel. And I'll show you parts. There's a clutch in here. There's even brakes. There's no reverse, of course. But right here, when the throttle goes forward, pulls the thing, and when it comes back, it pulls this lever, which pushes up against a plate, which actually is like a brake. So it's slowing down the transfer case in the front of the car that will slow the car down. Not stop it, but it slows it down just so that you can make a slower in the turn. Pretty ingenious. There's tons of low C, which is the motor. They make a car, but again, it's very expensive. And then this is this is one of their tune mufflers, and it's a spare, dirty, and basically it gets put on. It has gaskets. Actually, I'll show you what the motor looks like out of the car. You grab one of these little boots. So basically, this is 350. It's got one cylinder. This is your throttle. This is the carburetor. This is your intake and your high-speed needle. That's a low-speed needle. This is your air filter. And this is your exhaust, like your header. And then you would put on this high-temperature gasket. It's got a back plate where you actually can see the single piston. Your glow plug goes right inside there with a copper washer. Then your muffler goes on this way. And then there's a spring that goes through these tiny little holes here and here. And I actually have spring tools. You hook one end and you hook it around the head. And that's what holds this in. That's it. And then as you notice, there's more springs here with more little tiny holes that you can adjust this up and down. And the way you stop these cars is you just put a tool inside of the muffler and it kills it. Muffler's mounted in the front. So that's your engine. And I could take this entire engine apart and rebuild it. And here's cones, cylinders, screws for the motor, screws for the back plate. I'll show you the body in a minute. I was always number 5. Then you got cylinder O-rings, and then you got head gasket aluminum and head gasket copper. And I actually have regular automotive. I use anti-seize. I use for the brakes. I use the anti-squeal. I use both blue and red Loctite. I use gasket copper and regular gasket material. We do use brake cleaner, but not really. Denatured alcohol. As you know, I love denatured alcohol. So I've been using this by the gallon. So here, I'll show you what it looks like with the body on, and what the body looks like and how massive it is. And this is a brand new body. I'm still cleaning it. But that's the body. The original body that I used with the car was destroyed, because basically I stink at the racing. I just love wrenching, and I love it. I love going around and around and around. Like I said, I don't care if I get lapped 20 times. So the body mounts, that's what it looks like. The body comes like this, and I actually have 3 bodies because they're that bad. So that's the way the body comes. And then up top over there, I have this wing that I actually cut out. We got to heat and bend on an angle here. Bend all this. Side braces is thicker Lexan. And then remember, this car's teched. So everything is measured. There's a form that goes over it. And then there's a hole in the top of the car. Hello. That's where your glow plug. And I still have to cut out. Actually, I gotta probably cut a little more. I gotta look up. But you see, I made marks. But I think I gotta cut out more of this front window. 1, it's for air to go in to keep the engine cool. And 2, is that you do everything with the body on this car. I mean, once you test start it at your pit area, you bring it over for the race, you put it on this approach track. You just put it down onto the approach track, and you go and you run your car around. Now, if you happen to have a partner or a pit guy, he'll, hold on a second here. Let me grab the only lighter I have, which is a torch here. So if you happen to have a partner, a pit guy, or another racer, a friend of yours, my son, you make the car go around. You're going to heat up the tires. You're going to heat up the motor. Just like NASCAR. Pace car goes around, you go around. Do 10, 15 of these things at slower speed. You come back up onto your approach ramp. The approach ramp is designed so that when you pick the car up and you set it on the wood, the tires aren't hitting nothing. So if the car happens to go, it ain't going to take off on you. Remember, these things, this car is stock class, 40 miles an hour. Outlaw class, almost 60 miles an hour. And when you pit, when we do the turn marshaling, so there's like 4 of us. There's 2 on the track and 2 on the outside. And mostly it's on the turns. And the guys on the track stand on a special that they make a box. Because if this car cuts across, catches in the ankle, you're busting your ankle without even blinking an eye. If this SOB hits you, you're busting your ankle. So you're standing, and you got to see, you're like an acrobat, jumping in the air when the car's coming towards you. Because especially if you're jumped off to grab a car, now you got a car coming at you, you're like jumping all over the place. So, so you put it up on the approach ramp board, and then you would take your, and I'll show you, you take your, this is a bag that you carry with this thing. I got to be careful with it because it's still apart. But this is the bump box, or the starter box. And right now it's open because I had to change the batteries in it. See, there's 2 7.2 volt 9M batteries, 2 motors, this wheel, which I had to change the wheel, and there's a belt. And basically, this thing would be like that. Let me just spin this around so you can see what I'm getting at. And I don't know why I keep locking this car on So you would put it, well, let me see, okay, so we go this way like so. It would go like that. That would be it sitting on the bump box. So that wheel is touching this flywheel. And the pins on the bump box are positioning the car exactly where I want it. And I just put the bag on top of, which has nitro fuel in it. Let me just move this out of the way so we don't start a fire. And you would have bottles like this. And this bottle I prefer because you see it's tinted. And sunlight, if you're leaving it out on, if you don't have a canopy or a trailer like we had, sunlight degrades the nitro fuel. And you see there's the oil in the bottom. You gotta swish it around to get it. And basically, with the body on, you know, the rubber cap, well, not the whole top won't come off, but you take off the rubber cap, and then that's why I have all these zip ties. You lift it up, and then you would top your fuel off. And then you would put it back on the approach ramp and then go. And then you would go around and around, and you would stage wherever position you were, just like in a regular race. And then you would hear the announcer go, and boom, you start your race. So basically what we would do here is to be on the bump box. Everything's on, the radio is on, receiver's on. I would click this in and then push back down on the back of it, which would then engage the wheel, and then we have a special little tiny screwdriver that we can get in and adjust the needles. This here would go in your box. Carry a pair of needle nose pliers. We carry this special 5-way, actually it's more than 5-way, wrench. One's for the wheel hub, one will do the glow plug. We carry another glow plug wrench, an Allen key for bolts, for screws, and then, which I lost, the tool just fell down in here, and this is the tool that goes into the muffler to shut it down. And then the last thing we would carry over there to the track is this, it's a traction, it's a stick-it, foam traction, and it's got a little sponge in there, and it's still got the same motor, so I guess it's good for sitting around for so long. And I got 2 of these. I got another one that has a 6-volt battery in it, so that I know is dead, so I have to buy another 6-volt battery, and it's over. I'm not even bothered messing with it right now. So, all right, here, let me just move this over so I don't bump into it. And you know, I use a lot of these 1/4-inch driver, either ball end or hex end. I also have the nut driver ends, both standard and metric. Use both standard and metric. I'll show you here. This is rubber tires, and years ago I built this 1/2-inch plywood dowel, and then I put a body pin in here, and I got a couple of these. And this is more for practicing on the street and stuff, but that's the tire that's on there. And then these are the wheel nuts. Actually, let me just get you back over there. This is the wheel nut that goes on. And then I take a Milwaukee impact with, what do I got here? I think, 17 millimeter, and then lock the tire on. And then take it off. I just use, and that's what takes the tire off. And that's what we use. Yeah, Milwaukee 12-volt impact with a 17 millimeter socket. And that's what takes the tire off. You know, you go down the track, you learn all these little tricks. I use bread ties. I use bent paper clips to clean out the little ports in the carburetor. Yeah, I'll show you something else now. Now I can get my cigar back. wheel balancer. You put your wheel on, and it's got a hex. It grabs the hex inside of the wheel. Then you screw this on. Till it's just snug. Then you see there's a little arrow, and then you just put it up there like that, and you just give it a little spin. And then of course wherever it stops, say it stops there, I got wheel weights. You put a wheel weight on. You got to break these motors in. 5 fuel tanks. So you fill it with fuel, and you got to let the motors run under really no high RPM. You got to run them. It's called lean and rich. Too much fuel, not enough fuel. But you want too much fuel because the fuel's got oil in it. So there's actual snap-on of RC tools called Hootie. I call it Huddy. Hootie, Huddy. I think they're from Sweden. And this is a motor break-in stand. There you can see it. So I would clamp this down, and I would take the motor and mount it right here on this block. And then I have my return and my feed, and then this is my throttle linkage, which basically is tightened down. I had to fix this thing, this aluminum rod I had to make this morning because the original rod was stored in a box, was busted. And then inside of this Milwaukee bag, I have everything I need. So I have my muffler, which this one has a neoprene turn. So I would mount the muffler, of course, that way on the motor. Put the return into the return goes into the muffler because you get actual nitro fuel will go in, and they want to get it in the muffler and spit it out. That would mount on, and then you would mount a spacer, and then this propeller, and the propeller goes into, and of course that cone goes in like that, and it goes into this cage. And then I would kind of cover this cage up a little bit so you can still get some air, but not a lot of air. So that would go in like this, mounted to the motor. And then to start it, you don't use the bump box. I put this in a 1/2-inch electric drill on reverse. And then that grabs that and turns this. And after a second or two, it will start up by manipulating the throttle linkage here. And then I can just take a screwdriver, lock this down, and then and of course it's outside because you'll be getting this oil shit all over the garage. And I just let it sit outside. It's 15 minutes it takes, and it empties. And you don't want to empty the tank. You know, it'd be doing the same thing as you did in your car. So you got to watch. In 15 minutes, you go outside and you see, boom, you put your thumb over the exhaust, shuts it down. Then you let it cool. You check your temperature. You let it cool, and then you fill it again, and you do it again. And then as you progressively go on, you add more and more RPMs to it. And then that's how you set the molecules of the motor. You get antsy because you want to drive the car when you first buy it. So, all right, let me, what do I got? Oh, I got, here, this little thing, the shock absorbers. They're oil filled, and they have springs, and I'll show you. I have other springs, other colors. And this is a shock assembly. And basically what I do, it's got a little drawer, it's got a little magnetic thing so you can put your magnetic parts on it. And you put your shocks in here without the springs or anything. You put your oil in it. You let it breathe in atmosphere, and the bubbles come out. Then you pump the shocks to bleed them, and then you put them back in. You add more oil, you let it sit. Then you can put all your little tops on and then take it out and then assemble it with the springs and the retainers and go about your business. What else I got here? Let's see. The tools here. I'll show you some parts in a second, but here, this is also all Hootie. Flywheel puller, clutch install and removal tool, and I'll show you what the clutches look like. And then clutch tool, spring, and clutch, it's actually a clutch assembly holder when you're removing the clutch bell so that you're not spinning the piston. Then they make a tool. Oh, here it is. I think you can see it. Can you see it? Screws into the top of the motor. Because you always want this motor at bottom, that's bottom center. And when you screw this in, it holds the piston down. And it's got a non-mar surface on the tip of it. And now the piston won't move, so you can futz around with the your clutch and your pinion gear. And I'll show you that in a second. You know, I use an assortment of pliers. These are, let's see, here's, I got a couple of those. Again, Hootie spring pullers to pull different springs. And then I have different nut drivers. This is actually called Ed's, which is probably the Matco of regular screwdrivers. Different sizes, different shape of handles. And all this whole bit, this whole tote is all my stuff. And it's assortment. Turnbuckle tools. I have tools here that actually will tighten and loosen the cast and camber. And I have a few reamers for plastic and metal to make sure when they drill, especially when you're going to put in these A-arms, you're putting a pin through them, you're putting an E-clip on it, and then a retainer in the center. Well, whether it's metal or plastic, it might not be perfect, so I have reamers that actually ream out the hole so that it's perfect, and then when you just put a little grease on it, then your A-arm will work fine. Flashlight. Like I'm a little bit blind, so if I lose something, I can see what I'm looking at. And then, of course, I have other lights. Then I have, of course, my Dremel, files, a file set. Here, I have a few different, you know, brushes to clean stuff, you know, because I'll get, you know, they'll get debris on the dog bones. So I'll carry a couple of different brushes. But here is 2 boxes, and they carry my glow plugs. These, actually I do have more. These are the high-end glow plugs. That's what I would use for racing. And in this box, I have the low-end glow plugs that I would use for practice and bashing. So I have them, you know, because the higher-end ones are, you know, significantly more. I have a lot of zip ties I carry. And then I have, and it's so funny because I really wish I had this, and it's been sitting in the toolbox, but I got a 1/2-inch torque wrench, quarter-inch torque wrench for certain things. But more so for the thing that I'm going to be getting coming in a couple of days. So what else we got here? Oh, I'll show you some parts. You know, I keep an extra chassis, which thank God I haven't bent yet. Then in here, the actual air filter. There's a bunch of stuff in here that I carry, which is air filter oil, and then Hootie engine after run oil. So that's what I just use when I'm working. And then this yellow Loctite, red Loctite. And I have parch trees and stuff. But in here, what you have to do is there's 2 different parts of this air filter. There's, when you start hearing beeping, that's my charger in the background charging batteries. There's an outer and an inner part of the air filter. And this is it, and they're pretty rotted, so I have to buy a bunch more of these socks. But you have 2 parts of the air filter. One part I leave in a Ziploc bag coated in this blue oil, or, you know, pink, whatever. And basically that's going to prevent, the oil is going to grab on the dirt and dust, not bring it into the engine. And then this is, again, what the filter looks like. Zip tie holds it on. And then this is another outer sock. Again, I got to get a bunch of these. They're all rotted. Then I have inline fuel filters, which I don't have on this car. I have to put on. I got another one. And then I carry spare, and I like different color because there's a feed and a return, spare fuel filter hose. And I even have tiny little spring clamps, but I use little small zip ties. Then in here, you know, here's more stuff for that bump box. And then here is a clutch bell with the pinion gear. So that's what the motor is going to turn, the main gear in here that then turns the motor. Then I have foam pieces for the body. I have this spring which covers your feed, especially if it's going to wrap around your engine and get close to the heat. This stuff is pretty high temperature. Then I have the actual clutch bell, and see, it's got the knurl on it that the bump box grabs. And then here are the clutch pieces. And everything in this bag has to get put on to these 3 posts. So everything in that bag, and that's what those tools I showed you do. And at first, it was the dickens. You know, I had to make sure I was covered, these springs were popping, but after a while, you get used to it. And then nuts to enclose the actual steering arms that hold the linkages in, and more parts for the muffler, engine mounts, muffler springs, steering linkages, more steering linkages, throttle linkages, everything. I bought like 2 of every part, and then I even bought an electric car because they have this car in electric, and I stripped all the parts off of it because it was cheaper to buy another car because there's no motor or nothing. And then in here I have more of the wheel assemblies, upper and lower A-arms, transmission housings, more body posts, the body posts, which I'm losing here. So all the, because you break them, so I got plenty of them in here. And again, these tackle totes are the best. And then these, I carry a whole nother front bumper, the foam, and then here are the springs for different tracks, different racing. Each spring, different color, different tension. And then I even have a tool, I have to find it, that when you put the 2 springs in and then you push down, it tells you what the poundage is. Guys know by color. I don't. I'll be honest with you, these springs have never left the car. Let's see what else I got in here. These are all the small hardware. This is the main gear, and you can get them higher and lower teeth depending on the speed. Dog bones, servo pieces, more clutch bells, more clutch pieces in here, more clutch springs, ball links, screws, steering, just a smorgasbord of parts. And then in the bottom there's this nitro cleaner in a DeWalt bag with, here. I'm going to be switching this out to, here's my, my charging cord, and then here's another one of those little, and then here, I'll show you this. I used to have, and I sold it years ago, a thing called a tire truer. And basically, it's stripped. So I'll show you this inside of here. There's a thing here. You even got pieces. Where is it? Here it is. This little thing here will mount, and then your glow plug piece will stand. So you put it on your tools stand or wherever. It holds your glow plug. So there's a tool here, and you clamp this end into a tire truer, and you clamp your tire on. You put your tire in, and what it'll do is it'll actually take down the diameter of the tire, and also with this design piece that these guys make, they groove. You see those grooves? It's like a fork, and it grooves the front tires. These are front, these are rear. See, you take more down on the front than the rear. And then your tires, which these are brand new, so your tires have different compounds on them. See, these are brand new, and you can see one's got a purple color. See? One's got a purple color, and then one's got a black color. And it tells you what the, I'm so blind I can't even. .32 front and purple rear. That's what it was. So, hey, I just remembered by reading it. And I leave these in this bag, and that's what goes. We don't need, you know, like the other racing I do with the, with either the rock crawlers or the blitz, the short course. I don't really need a soldering iron, because there's it's very small electric, and everything is a lead. So I won't need to solder anything. I just need to bring a small charger with me to charge up, you know, this little humpback battery, so that I can keep it charged. And it's a tiny little charger behind here, which, just give me a second because I don't want to make sure. Good, it's not warm. So I just got to charge up that little humpback battery, and that's it. And I'm swapping all this out into the pack-out system. I got more room in the pack-out system than I have in the rigid system. In the rigid system, I used before, excuse me, the pack-out. So I think I showed you everything. Yeah. Oh, here's something I found. That was the NASCAR. I built a NASCAR truck, and they never had a Home Depot truck, but I liked the stickers. So I built this. I never raced it. As you can see, the body's in perfect shape. The other than that, it would be busted up like you wouldn't believe. But this actually will fit on take the NASCAR body off, put this on, now I got a truck. Of course, you got to change the tires to a different style tire, but I never really raced it. I actually built two. I built a car and a truck, and I couldn't get the motor to tech out right. Because you take the motor out of the car, you bring it up, they hook it up, and they make sure. And it wasn't that I jiggled with the motor wasn't running right. So he advised me. He goes, "Your car's just going to die or burn out the speed controller." So he says, maybe you should just race your other car, and that was it. So, but next week I'm going out to the 386 Raceway, and I'm bringing my Euro truck and my NASCAR, and I'm going to get back into practice. So that's it. I hope it interests you. I love it because, like I said, I love wrenching on stuff. So I always like this. But, and I'll show you, I should have it by next video. These cars I built 4 of them. I built, with us in the fire department, we had quite a few of our members had cars, and a lot of them, because I was building them, they got into it. And an adjacent department, they got into it too. They had a couple of guys, and one guy asked me to build him this car called the Baja from HPI, 1/5 scale, 30 some odd inches long, 2-stroke, basically edger motor in it, but on more than steroids and cocaine. Well, this thing had got to a point where I built him one, then I bought one because I liked it. And then someone saw it that was actually working on my house, and he's like, hey, I don't have time to build it. Can I buy it from you? He was doing the siding and roof and windows on my house on Long Island. So I sold him that. Again, never got it to run. Then another fireman asked me to build him one. He bought it, and I built it for him. And then when I came down here to Florida, 2 months after I couldn't work until my license, and when I wasn't working on my house, I would sit in the condo twiddling my thumbs. Didn't bring any of my models, so stuff I could. I bought some models, but a local track. I did have my RC. The guy had the Baja, and I put it together. And again, I sold it on eBay. Never got it on the track. Well, there's a company out called Rovin, and I found them through watching these YouTube videos. And I would say the gentleman's last name, but I'm going to murder it. He's funny as heck. He's actually is a brother fireman, and Botticelli. I think I apologize if you watch this video because I think he subscribed to me, and I murdered your last name. I apologize. But the guy really, when I was researching to look at this company called Rovin, and they make a replica of this Baja, but for like half the price, not even half the price, less than half the price. So I watched his videos. He's got tons of them, and that's all he does is nitro and gas, and I ordered one, and it'll be here in 3 days. And I ordered a bunch of extra parts for it. I also ordered a pro stand for it. I got a good deal on this stand. It almost looks like a rocket launching pad. So I'll have this stand, and then I'll have a stand specifically done for this Baja. 40 plus miles an hour, 2-stroke gasoline oil mixture. Gave me some great tips, oil to use, and different things that he purchased to upgrade it. Comes already built, which is boo-hoo-hoo for me because I love putting them together. But like he buys them, strips them all down, puts all the upgrade parts. So I ordered a bit of upgrade parts for it, and extra parts in case I break it, and I am like biting at the bit for this thing to come in. I like them better. Again, I never got to put any of those 4 on. I did break in a motor, and I did futz with one, but I really did. It was on the street. I never got to put it in sand, dirt. It's amazing what they make for it, and they make a ton of them. Plus, dragsters. This Primal RC makes this 2-stroke, 5.5, almost 6 feet long dragster, top fuel dragster that is just unbelievable. If you happen, I'll put the links below. You can check them out. Just unbelievable what they do. And they, Floyd Bennett Field, I used to race quarter scale NASCAR years ago. And they do a drag race. They've been there for years, 30, 40, I forget how long guys have been doing it. But they do it here in Jacksonville and Tampa, and they race together. It's pretty cool. So, all right, YouTube. Again, thank you for all of the subscribes. I figured I was going to do for my 6,000, I was going to do something like this. But within a week, I got like another 100 and some odd subscribers. So it was over the 6. So thank you. Appreciate it greatly. Got any questions? Email below, Mike's Woodshop sticker. Send me your info, and I'll get you one out. I know this is a little bit longer video. I just like blabbing about this. Okay? All right. You all be safe out there, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye now.